There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from seeing too much, from understanding too deeply, from standing in a crowded room and realizing that the noise of the world no longer reaches you the same way it reaches everyone else. It's not arrogance, it's altitude. The higher you climb in awareness, the thinner the air becomes. And the truth is, intelligence often isolates more than it connects. Because the more you understand people, the harder it becomes to stay angry with them, but also the harder it becomes to stay close. Understanding replaces judgment, but it rarely replaces distance. The highly intelligent mind does not crave solitude. It just never fully leaves it. Intelligence widens perception. That's its blessing and its curse. You see patterns others don't. You hear subtext in every sentence, motives behind every smile, the echo of fear in every opinion. You become fluent in the hidden language of human behavior. But fluency in that language comes with a cost. You can no longer enjoy the simplicity of not knowing. You start to hear the gears of every conversation turning, and it's exhausting. You predict responses before they happen, finish sentences before they're spoken. You stop engaging and start analyzing. You listen less to connect and more to understand. And in that subtle shift, connection quietly dies. For most people, ignorance is a cushion. For the intelligent, it's a wound that never closes. Because they can't unsee how fragile people are. They can't unhear the contradictions in the things they say. They can't unfeel the emptiness between words. When you see the machinery behind everything, the fear, the vanity, the longing, empathy becomes constant. But empathy, without relief, turns into fatigue. That fatigue is the loneliness of the intelligent. It's not about being unloved. It's about being understood too little. There's a strange irony in being intelligent. You can solve almost any problem, except the problem of being yourself. Because no matter how sharp your reasoning, the heart does not respond to logic. And so, you build theories around feelings you cannot fix. You think your way out of sadness, and sadness waits patiently for you at the next corner. You explain your isolation to yourself in perfect sentences, and yet the room stays quiet. The curse of intellect is that it knows exactly why it hurts. And that knowledge changes nothing. The world romanticizes the intelligent as visionary, genius, rare. But behind that myth stands something more fragile. The human being who has no place to rest his mind. The party is loud, the conversation small, and your brain, your beautiful, unbearable brain, is dissecting metaphors while everyone else is laughing about weather. You try to simplify yourself, to belong, to shrink the vocabulary of your thoughts, just to survive socially. But the more you do it, the more alien you feel. Because pretending to be less aware is the cruelest form of self-betrayal. So you leave early. You go home. You stare at the ceiling and wonder if you will ever meet someone who doesn't require translation. And then, one day, you realize something else. You have mistaken loneliness for superiority. You thought your isolation was proof of depth, but it was only the absence of echo. Intelligence can make you deaf to the frequencies of ordinary life. It makes the mundane unbearable, the repetitive intolerable, the trivial suffocating. But it also blinds you to beauty, because beauty hides in ordinary things. You wanted transcendence, but transcendence without tenderness is exile. The intelligent mind, left alone too long, begins to cannibalize itself. It turns inward, chewing on its own thoughts like a locked engine. Reflection becomes rumination. Solitude becomes self-analysis. And soon, thinking is not something you do, it's something you endure. That's when brilliance turns to burnout. That's when perception becomes prison. The loneliest part of intelligence isn't being unseen. It's being permanently on. But there's hope, if you know where to look. Loneliness, when understood, can evolve into solitude. And solitude, when embraced, becomes sanctuary. Because the mind that feels too much needs silence, not absence, but space. Space to stop performing intelligence and start living it. You find your people not by searching harder, but by speaking more honestly, by daring to reveal your strangeness, before it devours you. Because connection for the intelligent isn't built on similarity. It's built on recognition. The moment someone looks back at you with that same tired awareness, that same impossible depth, you realize you were never truly alone, just waiting for the right frequency. Still, let's be honest, that frequency is rare. You will always feel slightly misplaced, slightly ahead, slightly too much. But maybe that's the point. Maybe intelligence was never meant to make you comfortable. It was meant to make you conscious, and consciousness, by design, separates you from the noise. So yes, you will walk through life feeling misunderstood. Yes, you will spend nights talking to your own thoughts. But that isolation is not emptiness. It's refinement. Loneliness is not the absence of company. It's the presence of clarity. The challenge, then, is to let awareness coexist with warmth, to let the mind be sharp without cutting everything it touches, to let empathy be deep without drowning in it. You learn to balance distance and intimacy, to listen without analyzing, to love without dissecting, to exist without explaining. Intelligence matures the day it stops needing to prove itself. When you reach that point, the silence of your mind no longer feels like loneliness. It feels like peace. There's one final secret about the loneliness of the intelligent. It never fully disappears. But that's okay. It's not supposed to. Because that solitude is where you return to recalibrate, where thought becomes creation, where silence becomes meaning. It's not punishment. It's perspective. So when the world feels too loud and conversations too shallow and your thoughts too heavy, remember, this distance is the price of clarity. You didn't lose connection. You refined it. You didn't lose people. You outgrew illusions. And though it may never be spoken aloud, every intelligent mind eventually understands the same quiet truth. To see more is to stand alone. But to understand that is to finally belong to yourself. This is high IQ society, where silence is not emptiness, it's evidence of depth.